Hey, what's up traders? Watch this video here for Thursday, January 6th, starting off with the daily chart of the SPY as I always do. And this is a pretty ugly day. When you go back and look at the daily range on the SPY, right? You don't see too many days with this kind of range. There's one there. You can kind of go back and maybe find a couple others, but it's a pretty ugly day. I had one call that I think is worthy of the highlight video, and it was EGTX, which was on the gap playlist. So it opened right around 18 and then topped out at 18.15, sold off, started to come back up. I called a second mouse through 18, which is basically the red to green with the high of day above. And within 10 minutes, it went up over 20.50. I didn't handle it well. I didn't make anywhere near what I should have out of it. But anyway, and by the way, that's on the watch list for tomorrow. But that's like, I didn't make very many calls today because there wasn't a lot setting up. What I'm optimistic about, because if you've been trading lately at all, you probably realize there aren't a lot of great setups. Things are just kind of dead. I've been talking about the holiday volume. Well, today we certainly got a little extra volume, and if we can get anything resembling, a sell-off here in the overall market, we're going to get a lot of good setups. And again, I'm a long bias trader. I don't short, but I love when the market's really weak because then we get nice setups for snapback bounces on our on bounce play watch list. So something to think about. I don't really have a bounce play watch list for tomorrow that I'm in love with, but if we can get some nastiness in the market, then we could probably get some nice percentage gainers on an intraday basis. In the meantime, we've just kind of been meandering around and there just hasn't been a lot of good setups. So hopefully this is maybe a prelude to some volume coming back in and so a little bit more market participation and then some more money in our pockets, right? So anyway, so there's the SPY. Let's go into the watch list. EWTX, again, nice volume, fairly recent IPO, looks like back in March, so, well, fairly recent. It's almost been a year. But a nice pop today, biggest volume ever, and closing well off its highs, but at the same time, the market was pretty weak, right? So maybe that's part of the reason it closed well off its highs. BTCS, certainly big volume and nice relative strength for that one as well, because the market was so weak. I want to say the Dow might have been down like around 400 points or something. DTST, this one's almost closed too far off its highs for me to put it on the list, but it's still closed above the open. Topped out at 499 before closing at 413. Also closing near the low end of the intraday range today. So, the volume made me put it on a chart for tomorrow, but it didn't close very well, so I'm not in love with it. AACG keeps showing strength the last couple days, so I want to keep that on a chart. Don't know what's up there, but I'm a day trader. GNPX had this massive move. Now you got a couple days lower on declining volume, so that's a pretty good bounce play setup, but we still need that good intraday setup before I'll take a trade in it. Looking for a potential bounce. Excuse me. HIMX was on Bounce Watch coming into today and just goes right back on Bounce Watch going into tomorrow, right? Just another red day. So, and it's just fallen from 1650 down to 12 in 3 sessions. Certainly worth watching. DNAY was on Bounce Watch today. It never triggered, but it did put in a green candle on an ugly day, so that one stays on the watch list. Now some weird ones. NET, and again, this isn't a bullish chart, but it's also kind of getting that downside shape we look to. I always want to kind of look to the left and kind of draw an imaginary line from where we close to the left. And it definitely spent some time between 100 and 105 back here in June, July. So that might provide some support. It's a decent area to look for a bounce, and it's fallen pretty far. I'll give you an example. 4 days ago, this thing was almost 135, and now it's 105. So pretty good setup for a potential snapback bounce. I was a little hesitant to maybe put this one on watch because it's Chinese, and if you've been following the market for the past few years at all, every now and then. I don't know the nuances behind it, but every now and then there's a group of folks that say, "Hey, we're gonna kill this one tomorrow," and it's usually a Chinese stock, and I think JWEL was on their list a few days ago. And I'll take the 3 days out of it. I actually had this on watch because it was so strong. When the daily chart looked like this, I never took a trade in it the next day, but look what it did. It ended up going up to 25.78 and falling all the way down to 8 something. And now after 2 more days, now again, look to the left, it's got some support here at this $6 area. So, and 3 sessions ago at one point it was over 25 bucks briefly, right? So even though it's a squinky stock and had a bear rate or whatever you want to call it, I think it's still a decent possible bounce play setup. I don't generally like playing stocks like this for a bounce, but it doesn't cost me anything to put it on a chart. So if I get a setup, I'll try it, right? CFLT, 4 days in a row, back down to really to some support here on the $60 area. And it's fallen from almost 80 in 4 sessions. So that's another potential bounce play. MTTR, again, another ugly chart, but kind of getting that downside shape where the candles are getting bigger in range to the downside and the volume candles are getting higher. So, almost I liken it to almost where they're reaching out to touch each other. Generally, that's when I start looking for a bounce. Again, we'll drag the cursor to the left and say, hey, there is some support in the $14 to $16 area. See, it's been a long time in that area. So another good setup for a potential bounce. And then lastly, PRDS, which had a really nice move from like 10 to 17. Now you're down 4 days in a row to the 20-day. So that also goes on Bounce Watch. I'm going to keep it short and sweet tonight. That's what we'll be watching tomorrow. We'll also add gappers to the list in the chat room in the pre-market. And hopefully we'll find some good trades tomorrow. All right, I'm done babbling. We'll see you in chat.